The election's only a few days away, and with our potential PMs head-to-head in the polls, people have started discussing the possibility of a hung parliament. But what the heck is that?
It's Voting 101 for 2022 with Matilda Boseley from The Guardian, Australia.
In Australia, there are 151 seats in the lower house of federal parliament, and whichever party wins the absolute majority of seats, 76, gets to form government and their leader becomes the Prime Minister. But you might have noticed there's a problem with that. There are more than 2 political parties. So while it's rare, it is totally possible that neither Labor nor the coalition will hit that majority mark. Especially if, say, you have a political climate where people aren't stoked with either of the 2 big players, and then you have a bunch of minor parties and independents who are making like a really strong push to win over disenfranchised voters and score seats. For example, when no one wins an outright majority, that's what you call a hung parliament. And suddenly, all of those small parties and independents who have been elected to what's known as the crossbench hold a bunch of power. See, in order to get up to that magical 76 number, both Labor and the coalition have to compete to woo members of the crossbench and bring them over to their side, usually by promising some pretty big policy concessions. For example, in 2010, Julia Gillard was forced to win over 3 independents and a Greens member in order to have enough people to safely form government and be reinstated as the PM. She promised them a variety of things, from weekly private meetings with her, to the formation of a specific committee, to promising to reform poker machine laws. And in exchange, they agreed to ensure confidence and supply, which is basically just a fancy way of saying that they agreed to pass Labor's budget and support the government to remain in power. But when it came to other legislation, they were still able to vote however they liked. Teaming up with the crossbench like this is known as forming a minority government. And for the next 3 years, the major party that had to do that are going to need to do a lot more negotiating every time they actually want to get their policies enacted. So you can see why political parties are pretty desperate to never have to do this, right? Well, I guess we'll have to wait till Saturday night to see if they're forced to.